Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where we recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano. It is the 5th of March, 2025. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So I'm not sure how many of you are aware, but there is a pretty major event happening on Friday. The crypto summit being put together by Trump's crypto czar, David Sachs, and Donald Trump will apparently also be speaking at this summit. I think it's going to go for a few hours, and he's bringing together ecosystem leaders from across crypto in order to discuss just crypto generally. I think discuss things like the strategic reserve, discuss things like how the government can build with crypto, how businesses can build with crypto, regulations, legislation, and so on and so forth. So it's a pretty big deal. You could say it's a pretty big deal here. And of course, people were asking the question of who is actually going to be attending this summit. So there is going to be a bunch of people that you have heard of attending, and you can find lists of those online. I'm not going to cover all of them, but the ones that I wanted to cover were the ones that have close ties to Ethereum, because obviously everyone was asking, is Ethereum going to be represented there? And I think they are, and I think that I think Ethereum is, and in a really big way. And I put a tweet out where I basically listed through almost everyone that is basically pro Ethereum and that is going to be attending the summit. So the founder of the co-founder of World Liberty Finance will be there, and they are building on Ethereum Layer 1. They've been stacking ETH, as we all know. Chainlink's Sergey is going to be there. Chainlink is chain agnostic, but a huge part of their business, if not most of their business, is in the Ethereum ecosystem. So obviously they're very pro-Ethereum. Brian Armstrong from Coinbase is going to be there. As you guys know, Coinbase is building Base, the largest Ethereum L2 right now, and they have close ties with Circle, which is the issuer of USDC, the second largest stablecoin, and most of that lives on Ethereum. Robinhood's CEO is going to be there. Robinhood are working closely with Arbitrum. Kraken CEO is going to be there as well. They're building Inc., an Ethereum Layer 2, and they've long been very bullish on Ethereum. I don't know how many of you know this, but Kraken was the first, I believe, centralized exchange back in the day to list ETH for trading. So the very first one to do it, at least the first in the US, maybe not first globally, but they did it before Coinbase did. So very big deal there, and they've been really bullish on Ethereum for a long time. And then I said in my tweet, I'd love to have someone there from Etherealize, particularly Danny Ryan. And of course, I think the community rallied around this, the Ethereum community rallied around this. And Danny Ryan actually replied to me saying that he thinks he could do an excellent job broadly representing Ethereum's interest in this kind of environment. And I completely agree there. And one party that I didn't call out on my tweet here was Paradigm. So Paradigm is going to have a presence there. Paradigm, their VC firm that are pretty heavily involved with Ethereum. They have a whole team that works on an Ethereum execution client known as Reth. They do a lot of stuff in the layer 2 space. They just do a lot for Ethereum. So they're going to be there, and they're definitely very pro Ethereum. So Ethereum has a lot of representation at this summit. I am not worried at all about Ethereum not being heard there. What does concern me a little bit is some of the other people going. They're obviously from other ecosystems, and we all know how much they love to FUD and spread misinformation about Ethereum. But I do think that because we've got such a large presence there that works within the Ethereum ecosystem, that FUD and misinformation will be muted. I don't think it's really going to have an impact here, and I don't think they're going to get away with just spreading this, because there'll be people there to basically correct the record. Now, I hope Danny Ryan's there. Maybe it's too late notice, because as you guys know, Danny only became the co-founder of Etherealize very recently, so maybe it's too late to get him an invite. We'll see. I do know that there's stuff happening in the background to try and get him in the room there. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens, because I think obviously he would be the best representative for Ethereum for sure, because he is directly building on Ethereum. He's directly representative of Ethereum as an ecosystem, both on the community side, but also on the core dev side as well, and the building side there. Whereas all of these other organizations, or people from these organizations are definitely pro Ethereum, but they've also got their own thing to worry about. Obviously, Brian Armstrong is pro Coinbase over anything else. Obviously, Sergey is pro Chainlink over anything else, so on and so forth. So Danny would be pro Ethereum over anything else. Obviously, he's a co-founder of Etherealize. They have some of their own goals that may or may not be the same as Ethereum's goals. I think they're pretty tightly coupled there. But yeah, maybe they have things they want to do that isn't strictly Ethereum, kind of like focused on Ethereum evangelizing. Maybe they want to commercialize some aspects of what they're building. You know, there are kind of different things going on here. But as I said, I do think that Ethereum has great representation here. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the results of this first crypto summit is, which, as I said, is happening on Friday there. So no need to worry. Ethereum is going to be represented there in a really big way. And not just there, like going forward, I really do think that Ethereum is definitely going to be in more and more rooms, not just because of Etherealize, but we now have fresh EF leadership, as you guys know. We talked about it the other day. But we also have just so many major companies building within the Ethereum ecosystem that it makes absolutely no sense for them not to be pro Ethereum, pro ETH, and to be promoting Ethereum because it's promoting their own interests. You know, Coinbase has a huge vested interest in Ethereum through a lot of different ways, but in particular through Base and USDC. So they would want there to be things, they would want to represent Ethereum's interest in that environment as well because it closely links with their own interests. Same goes for pretty much anyone on this list. You know, Chainlink, as I said, most of their business is in the Ethereum ecosystem. Robinhood is working very closely with Arbitrum, which is in the Ethereum ecosystem. Kraken, same as Coinbase, you know, so on and so forth here. So looking forward to that. I will keep you guys updated as best I can there. Not sure how much of it is going to be made public, but hey, I'm sure there'll be a lot of excitement from those at the summit, and they'll be sharing what they can there. Alright, so we had Sepolia upgrade to Pectra today. So as you guys know, Sepolia is the other testnet besides Holeshki that we do testing on, and we've upgraded it to Pectra. It went pretty well. I wouldn't say it went like 100% smooth. There was an issue with the deposit contract stuff again, but it wasn't an issue that broke the network or anything like that. It seems, at least from the updates that I've seen, this is only a few hours old news now, but it seems that the network is going just fine. It is proposing blocks. There are more blobs in those blocks. Everything's being tested. Everything's continuing to be tested on the testnet here. So we didn't break Sepolia. It's all well and good there. I'm hoping that more information about what kind of issues there were, what small issues there were, will come to light over the next few hours, and I'll probably cover that on Friday's refuel. But for now, Sepolia seems to have successfully forked to Pectra, which means mainnet is next. Now, obviously, the question on everyone's mind is, are we going to do Pectra in early April still on mainnet, or is it going to be delayed given that we had, obviously, a pretty big issue with Holeshki and maybe some small issues with Pectra here, with Sepolia here, but they're not necessarily directly related to Pectra. So we're going to have to see. I think this week's All Core Devs call will shine a big light on that, which should be happening in the next couple of days, I believe, and we'll see there. I am expecting there to be a slight delay here, I guess, for mainnet. I would say that instead of like early April, we may see like mid to late April, which is fine. I don't think it's a big deal, but better to be safe than sorry, obviously, there. But as I said, the fork on Sepolia went through, mostly fine, but I'll get the updates to you guys probably on Friday's refuel about what went wrong with, whatever the small issue was there, because there just isn't that much information out about that right now. All right, moving on from Pectra and looking ahead to Fusaka, Marek here from the Nethermind team put together a tweet going through Nethermind's view on what they want to do in Fusaka. So they aim to ship Fusaka in 2025. The Fusaka scope should be finalized ASAP so that the core devs can proceed with scoping Glamsterdam, which is the fork after Fusaka. PIADAS is the most important feature of Fusaka and serves as the key readiness indicator. I think that is widely agreed upon by pretty much every core developer and researcher, as well as the community. That I don't think is going to change at all. And of course, Nethermind would also like to see EOF in Fusaka, along with a few additional EIPs in this fork. Now, the core EIPs that Marek wants to see are, of course, PIADAS, the EOF EIPs, and a EIP 7883, which is mod XP gas cost increase. Now, I'll explain that in a little bit, what that means, but the other EIPs that Marek thinks should be considered are a few EIPs here that are quite simple, more technical EIPs, so I'm not going to go over those right now, but the reasoning around the mod XP gas cost increase is it's currently the biggest bottleneck to scaling up the gas limit and could hinder further gas limit increases. So we definitely want to get that in there, as well as the other EIPs that Marek suggested here, in order to make sure that we can keep scaling up the gas limit there, in addition to obviously scaling up blobs with PIADAS. And then Marek moved on to what the focus of Glamsterdam should be. The primary focus, he believes, should be censorship resistance resistance with things like Fossil and slot organization improvements with ERP7732 and EPBS. I remember I said this even months ago on the refuel that the fork after Fusaka, if Fusaka becomes just a PIADAS and EOF fork, should definitely put a strong focus on Fossil and EPBS. And for those of you who don't know, these are actually scalability increases as well, because we essentially get to enshrine proposed builder separation with EPBS, so we don't have to rely on essentially this kind of relay network that we have today. And we basically say that, well, since most of the network is outsourcing their block building, we can have beefy block builders with very, I guess, like conservative validators proposers and validators that check the blocks without needing to kind of up those requirements too much there. And Fossil allows us to do this because of the fact that it improves censorship resistant guarantees, where it doesn't matter if most of the builders are trying to censor, they can't because of Fossil. It essentially allows you to get your transaction included in one block, in one slot, I should say, there. And also, Marek says that they are beyond Fusaka and Glamsterdam. They aim to implement full history expiry in the upcoming forks as it is a non-consensus change, which I'm going to talk about in a sec. And the Nethermind team remains committed to advancing stateless Ethereum, which is a big roadmap item, which I believe is going to come into focus towards the end of this year and into next year there. Now, speaking of history expiry, Storm here from Paradigm. I mentioned earlier about how Paradigm is pretty invested in the Ethereum ecosystem and does a lot of building here, shared a kind of graphic here, quote tweeting Marek about history expiry. So Marek said that more than 80% of Ethereum full node disk space is currently occupied by history, so it's data not needed to validate new blocks. So if we do lower the storage burden of nodes by 80% via history expiry, that will mean that the chain size will go down dramatically. And as Storm says here, this will switch the chain size from the dark blue line to the light blue line on this chart, and this will free up many years of runway for state growth, which basically means we can increase the gas limit without worrying about state growth too much here. And you can see the dark blue line, which is quite big right now. It's over 1.5 terabytes. And then you see the light blue line, which is just eyeing it right now. It's like 350 gigabytes or 400 gigabytes on this chart. So obviously a dramatic decrease there, which we can fill up with more stuff such as a gas limit increase. So that's coming. The first phase is still set to go live on May 1st, I believe, which is going to expire everything before the merge. And then I think the second phase is things after the merge. The merge happened over 2.5 years ago now, guys. September 15th, 2022. It's actually incredible that it's been so long at this point. But yeah, it's been a while now. And eventually we'll get to the point where Ethereum has existed as a proof of stake network longer than it existed as a proof of work network. That's going to be quite a momentous occasion to celebrate. But not for another like 5 years or something like that. But yeah, anyway, you can go check out the graphic. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. Alright, so the Ethereum Foundation has introduced a new research organization called ZK Knox. So this is an organization that's going to be at the forefront of advanced cryptography, which is backed by a grant from the EF, and their mission is to provide high-impact open source code that improves Ethereum security and efficiency. So essentially, this is another organization that has spun out of the EF, but the EF is funding it, and I'm sure there's going to be other parties funding this as well. What ZK Knox wants to focus on is essentially, in so many words, practical security on the whole chain. So on the whole Ethereum chain here, and I think beyond Ethereum as well. They want to just do things in deep cryptography land, make sure that the cryptography that we're using within the Ethereum ecosystem remains secure and reliable, such as TEEs, HSMs, ZK stuff, all the NPCs, all the good stuff that you hear about a lot, all the acronyms that you hear about a lot. And I'm pretty excited to see that this team has spun out. They're going to have more autonomy here. They're definitely going to get stuff done, I think, and very important stuff done as well, because this is the stuff that is part of the end game of Ethereum. We talk about the end game a lot in Ethereum, but what I think is the main blocker of getting us there is safety, honestly. Cost is obviously a blocker because ZK proving, for example, is still relatively expensive, but I do think safety and security are the top things there, because of the fact that it could be like free, right? Let's imagine a world where proving costs are basically zero, the technology is commoditized, everyone's using it, it's all well and good, but then what is the actual risk here? Well, the risk is of bugs, of course. So if we're using this for everything, and it's very complex and advanced cryptography, the chances of bugs are relatively high. So the reason why we want to make sure that we have as many people looking at this as possible, as much research done into the security of this as possible, and making all of this as reliable and as, I guess, like, and reducing as much complexity as possible, is because we know people want to use this technology. We know how big of an unlock it is for the Ethereum ecosystem, how big of a part it plays in the end game of Ethereum and the core protocol, and beyond that with L2s and everything like that, that we need to make sure that it's safe, secure, and reliable. Otherwise, a bug, for example, like in the worst case scenario, a bug in a ZK circuit could lead to billions of dollars being lost. Like that's the kind of stuff we're dealing with here, guys. Maybe potentially tens of billions of dollars. So we need to make sure that we're doing this correctly. We need to make sure that we're not overloading the system, so to speak, so that we don't break anything, and we can use this technology in a safe, secure, and reliable way there. But anyway, you can go follow this new ZK Knox Twitter account. I'll link this thread in the YouTube description below for you to check out. All right, speaking of endgame things, Taiko has a new research post here revisiting native rollups. So as you guys know, and as Taiko says here, native rollups are essentially a return to sharding, but this time it's different. They're programmable execution shards that leverage the L1's execution environment, creating infinite scalability while inheriting Ethereum security. They really are the holy grail of rollups, and they're not exactly like what sharding was, the original designs of execution sharding. They're a lot better, obviously. That's the reason why people are so excited about it. But they're also the main kind of, I guess, like holy grail of rollups. I think base rollups, as I've mentioned before, get us like 90% of the way there. But native rollups, you know, a ZK VM pre-compile in the core protocol itself is the holy grail. But it goes back to what I was just saying earlier about the fact that bugs are a relatively high chance of happening with these things. So and proving costs are still really high. This stuff needs to go through a million different security reviews and audits, and we still need to pick the circuits that we're going to use. So to get this actually live on the L1 and as part of the core protocol, probably a few years out at this point still. Like I don't foresee this happening anytime soon, just because it's too risky to do it anytime soon. It adds a lot of risk for obviously like a pretty big gain, but we can get, you know, we're already scaling with L2s. Rollups are getting better every day. We're doing things like base rollups. So we're not at the point where it's like critical that we need native rollups right now, that we sacrifice security. We should never sacrifice security. We should always value security over everything else. Unlike some other people in the ecosystem that think that shipping speed matters more than security, there is a balance to that. Like, and I do believe security takes precedence here and takes priority, especially with Ethereum, which is home to so much and is securing so much value. So yeah, as much as I want to see native rollups live on the network, it's going to be a little while there. But you could still read this research that Taiko has put together. They're really at the forefront of both based and native rollups here. They're doing a lot of great work there, and they have a Twitter thread here with a TLDR, but also a blog post that I'll link in the YouTube description below. Obviously, you can go read this for yourself. I'm not going to go over or anything like that. But yeah, I generally am obviously very bullish on native rollups. I think that eventually maybe all rollups look like based and native rollups. I honestly think they will. I think based and native rollups are going to be the default eventually. I think that the way the rollups are today with their centralized sequences are going to go away. I think that being interoperable with all the other rollups and L1 Ethereum is just too big of an unlock. Directly inheriting Ethereum security is too big of an unlock. The worry about long confirmation times is basically gone. You have pre-comps for that, and pre-comps are maturing at a rapid rate. So really, I think that this is like a triple whammy. We I guess like we target, or I guess we fix the issues around centralized sequences and multi-sigs and stuff like that, or at least we make it better. There's no such thing as fixing the issue. It's more like we make them unnecessary, or make it better, or make it like not as critical to use these kind of tools in order to secure yourself here. In order to build things here. We hit the interoperability stuff as well. That's a big thing, obviously, making sure that we can get these rollups to be interoperable with each other, as well as Ethereum mainnet here. And also just like simplifying things for builders too, and simplifying ways for people to launch their own rollups in order to capture their own kinds of value here, as well as obviously making sure that the Ethereum network is sufficiently compensated for the security that it's providing for these rollups. But that is a long-term thing. I think I said again on Twitter today that I find it bizarre that people that like to focus so much on revenue and just trying to extract as much revenue as possible from rollups right now, that to me is still not the right play. We don't have that many active on-chain monthly users. I mean, if I was to say, like, how many people do we have that are monthly active on-chain users right now? It's less than 1 million, guys. I'm talking like people that are active every month, or even like every day, or every week, every month. Like, they're just there, they're active, they're doing things all the time. It can't be that much more. Like, yes, there'll be pockets of time where things are like really hot, for example with meme coins, where so many more people will be on chain, they'll like do a swap or something, like we saw with the Trump coin stuff that happened, right? A lot of people got that Moonshot app, they had their first kind of on-chain trading experience there, and maybe we had like a few million or something. I don't even know if it's that, but maybe we had like a few million for a few days or a couple of weeks. But I'm talking actual active users on a longer time frame here. I don't think it's more than 1 million, honestly, and that's a tiny fraction of the overall population of the planet, even if you just include obviously the 18 plus population, the ones that that have money, right? Because like most of the things on chain that you're doing require money, and you're doing stuff involving money, so unless you have money, it's not really much use to you there, besides some pockets of things like obviously Farcaster and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's financial, it's DeFi. But yeah, in that world, I just don't think it makes any sense to try and extract like as much rent as we can. And I've ranted about this on the Refuel before. I think that because that's the reality, and because we expect billions more people to come on chain, and like billions more of these AI agents and bots to come on chain, we really need to make sure that we have the capacity for that before we try to milk them, essentially. I don't know. I'm puzzled by people's comments around that. I understand that they think that Ethereum L1 is getting a little bit shafted because validators aren't earning enough fee revenue from blobs. I get that, but it's the concept of a loss leader. It's the fact that you give up revenue now to get even more revenue later, and to grow the business and to cement your place in the ecosystem. Because if we charge too much, people are going to switch off of Ethereum. Rollups are going to switch off of Ethereum. So we need to keep them in the ecosystem. That is the critical thing that we need to do. That is the most important thing we need to do, and I'm a strong believer in that. So, and I think that the core developers are aligned with that. That's why they're making sure that they push blobs increases as much as possible. We want to keep the Ethereum ecosystem as cheap as possible, for as long as possible, and then think about value accrual later down the line there. But anyway, you can go read Taiko's thread and blog post. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, last up here, obviously everyone's aware of the ByBit hack that happened last week. $1.5 billion worth of ETH was stolen. I believe most of it has been sold at this point, whether it's for dollars or BTC, and it's been laundered through ThorChain and a bunch of other mixers and other places there. So yeah, that's over. But the reason I'm bringing it up today is because GridPlus has a great tweet thread here about the fact that if ByBit was using a GridPlus device, such as a Lattice One, or maybe their upcoming devices that they've been teasing a little bit here, they would have been able to avoid what happened with their hardware wallets, because there is this concept of blind signing with hardware wallets, which seems to be the norm, which is really stupid, where essentially you're signing something without being able to read what you're signing. So that's why it's called blind signing, because you're essentially signing it blind. And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this. On your Ledger device, for example, you have something come up on there, and you click through it to sign the message or sign the transaction, and you don't know what you're signing or what you're doing here. Like, it's not giving you all the information on the device itself. It can give you the information on the front end, but as we've seen with the ByBit hack, the front end of a website is relatively easily compromised, so you can't trust that either. But then when it comes down to the device itself, that should, in a properly built hardware wallet device, that should show you exactly what's going to happen. And you can see a comparison picture here of what's happening. You can see that on the left-hand side, the safe transfer said that the transfer was going to the ByBit hot wallet, whereas with the ByBit attack, you can see the actual address here that was not the ByBit hot wallet address. So you can see the whole thing. I mean, you don't just see that, you see the whole transaction. You see exactly what's happening here. The signer is the ByBit cold wallet, the nonce for it, the gas price, the amount, the contract that you're interacting with, and the execution of the transaction that's kind of happening here. So you get a more detailed more detailed kind of look here with using the GridPlus devices. So I just wanted to kind of give a shout out, sorry, I should say, to GridPlus devices here. They're great. You should definitely be using them. I know that the GridPlus Lattice 1 is big. You can see it in the picture here. It's a pretty big device. It's not as convenient as Ledger devices, but they are working on a new device. You can see I don't believe this is what it's going to look like, but I believe they're working on a new device that they're going to try and like have a smaller form factor, maybe in the vein of what they're kind of what they're showing here, like basically a phone form factor that we're used to here, which would obviously be a lot better. Ledger's actually gone in that direction as well with the bigger screens, which is cool. But there's still blind signing for some reason is the norm of this ecosystem, but it's just insane there. But anyway, you should go check out GridPlus's tweet thread. I'll link in the YouTube description below. I should actually disclose that I'm an investor in GridPlus. I've known the founder for a very long time. He's a really good friend of mine, and I'm not shilling because I'm invested in it. I'm shilling because they actually provide solutions to real problems here, and I've been shilling GridPlus even before I invested in them. I've been telling you guys to buy them. I have mine. I love mine. They work very, very well. But yeah, you should go check out this thread for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so there. Now, last few minutes here, I'm not going to talk about the markets again. I just wanted to follow up to what I said on Monday's episode regarding the markets. One thing that has kind of annoyed me a little bit, and I understand like emotions are flying right now and people are heated right now, but one trend that I'm seeing, not just within kind of the Daily Gwei community, but like in wider communities, is that people are blaming others for their investing and trading decisions. And the reason why this irks me is because you have no one but yourself to blame when you make a trade or investment that you don't like. For example, if you buy something, an asset, and then the asset goes down, but you bought the asset because you watched some video or listened to some podcast and they were bullish on it, you don't blame them. Like, yes, there's a fine line here where there are obviously scammers and grifters that are like basically pumping things up that they're not disclosing that they're an insider of, or pumping things up that are just complete dog shit and lying about it. But if you have made an investment decision based on information that is truthful coming from someone else, and then you trade away those gains, or the asset goes down and you've lost money on it, like, you've got no one to blame but yourself. You can't blame the other person. They didn't force you to do anything. They're just relaying this information across. And as I said, there is a line here. The line gets crossed when these people are doing things like not disclosing that they're an insider and just basically lying about what they're promoting here. So I totally needs to be a line drawn here. But I think I'm talking about it from maybe even my perspective, where obviously I'm very bullish Ethereum. Obviously I'm very bullish ETH. I've been talking about it for a very long time. But I think I've been pretty clear in that everything that I say and everything that I look at is very long term. My ETH holdings are very long term. My investment in ETH is very long term. I've been buying ETH since it was like $10. I bought most of my ETH between $100 and $200 in the previous bear market. Like, I've been doing that and investing a long term because Ethereum to me is a very long term play. And I've said that so many times before. And I've also told you guys that you need to be taking profits whenever you can. You can't just be fully invested all the time. You can't just be waiting for arbitrary portfolio targets. Like, that's just not the way to do it, because all it does is lead to disappointment, and it will lead to you being emotional about it, and then it will lead to you lashing out, and you'll blame other people for it when in reality it was your problem and it was your kind of a mistake. And I understand why people like to blame others, because you don't want to take responsibility. You don't want to admit that you're the one who made the mistake. And I get that on a very fundamentally deep level, because I've had lots of bag fumbles over the years, guys. I've had lots of investment fumbles over the years. I don't blame anyone else. I fully accept that it's my responsibility, and I fully accept that I am to blame for everything that I think I've done wrong. But at the same time, it doesn't make me feel any better about it, right? It still sucks to feel that way. But the reason why I bring this up is because I implore you guys not to lash out at people. You can call out scammers and call out grifters. Please keep doing that. I love it when people do that. I do that all the time. It's good. We need to keep the ecosystem honest, but don't lash out at honest people. Don't push them away. Don't push them into places where they don't want to be part of this ecosystem anymore. It's not just me, it's others. Like, I feel this, but there's so many others that I speak to, they feel this as well. They want to be involved in crypto. They love this ecosystem. But when they're attacked for things like people making their own investment decisions and they're blaming others for their screw ups, that's just not healthy. It's very toxic, and it leads to a toxic environment that no one really wants to be in. But anyway, on that note, I will end it there for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all on Friday. Thanks, everyone.